Hi, I'm Akhil.
And I'm Rohan Nahar.
Welcome to The Long Take. This week we're talking about Laal Singh Chaddha, which is now on Netflix, the Aamir Khan and Kareena Kapoor movie. Took only a couple of months to come to streaming after theatrical release, which in itself was like majorly delayed thanks to the pandemic. It was supposed to come out like pre-pandemic movie, right? Or during the pandemic. I think it was like 2020 Christmas was the original date, if I'm not wrong.
I don't remember the
Um,
original date, but I do know that they
I think it
shot
was Christmas
during
something.
the pandemic.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, I remember talking about this movie to someone in 2019, I think, when I was at Mami, the movie festival, and it just feels forever now because the physical Mami hasn't happened in like 3 years or whatever. So this feels like this movie has been like in the making forever as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, now it's here, and it's basically like what I guess the pitch was like Indian Forrest Gump, and it doesn't really deviate from that log line in any sort of fashion.
Not at all. I mean, it's pretty much exactly what you would expect, but it's not. It's the kind of unchallenging movie that you watch and you're like, okay, you shrug and then you move on.
Yeah, it's like the movie that you want to watch on a long flight to like somewhere. You watch the plane, you're like, "Okay, I guess, fine."
Yeah.
I was doing nothing else. I was just gonna sit in the plane. This is better than just sitting.
Yeah. Plus, it's episodic also, so you can just pause and eat your meal and then be like, "Acha, take it."
Yeah, kya meal? Yeah, when the meal comes, like, that's a good point. You just like walk up to the restroom, come back, or like, abhi ye chapter ho raha
There are many pausable moments in this movie.
hai. So clearly, this movie is built to like watch on a streaming service and not in the theaters.
Although, no, I mean, I do think that it does have a certain level of epic scope, like at least visually. And
Visually, yeah, I could feel like, I mean, by the time they got into the whatever the longest third act, I was like, I'm not sure the movie ever like pulled me or like, I had fun with it. But I was just reflecting, I was like, wait, like it's done a lot though. Like in terms of just like sheer storytelling, it's just done a lot.
Yeah.
That's all I can give it.
Which is basically what I don't remember Forrest Gump, but I do remember thinking similar things after watching it. I was like, okay. And Forrest Gump is the kind of movie that you watch after having heard a lot about it. It's this major kind of cornerstone almost of the last 20 years, 30 years now. So you go into it with different expectations as compared to Laal Singh Chaddha, which I'm guessing we had 2 months of whatever chit chat we heard. But I don't think any of it was particularly good, right? Like people didn't have anything nice to say about it.
Yeah, it's also like, I mean, it's such an, as you said, it's such an unchallenging movie that you can't find anything to like admire about it. But at the same time, you can't find anything to like despise about it, right? Like, I mean, like, how can you hate such a movie that's like trying to be like such a cuddly, warm blanket?
Yeah, it's trying to be, I mean, in its own, like, it's not jogi levels of timidity.
Yeah. Although like it revisits like a certain section of that.
But it is similar in a way that what it doesn't include is more telling than what it does include. And unlike Jogi, which was kind of restricted to one particular thing, there's a reason why he's a Sikh in this movie, right? And there is the story covers like many decades, so you have multiple like opportunities to do things with it, which I feel is a missed kind of opportunity, right? Because they don't do much with the canvas that they had. It's like you have like a...
Yeah, and it's also like, I didn't expect, I think that was probably the only thing that sort of they moved from the Forrest Gump is that, because we moved 30 years since the release of that one, we should also move our timeline up 30 years. And I'm not sure that sort of reflects that well on the movie, because the whole point of, I guess, Forrest Gump, I mean, you cannot obviously encompass US history because they're such a much older country than ours. They've been, like independent since like the late 1700s. But what they did was it sort of like encompassed recent US history, right? Like they went from World War II essentially, and then on to like all those decades until like basically the movie was made, like through Vietnam War and everything, and JFK and all that, whatever. Like,
Did it
like
do
Reagan,
World War II? I don't...
No, sorry, I meant like post World War II America, basically.
Yeah.
That's what they sort of like the canvas was, right? Like they sort of, and America was obviously the reigning superpower at that point, Soviet had collapsed, so they were basically the only power in the world. So like American exceptionalism is almost like a theme you can read into with Forrest Gump, right? So if you're doing something similar with India, I sort of imagined I had read anything about the movie, is that they would start closer to independence. But the movie starts like after Indo-Pak War 96. He's born there, so movie actually starts in the 80s, which is like much later, right? We've already like been independent for like almost 30-40 years by now.
Yes, but I think the reason for that is Forrest Gump itself is like 30 years old almost now. So, I mean, 90s ke liye Vietnam War, that's the most, there's no Iraq, there's no Afghanistan, right?
But then I think what happens is that, so they, for the period of like say 1980s through like at least 2000s or very early 2000s, they revisit the big moments in our history or whatever, right? It's funny though that they, in between doing Golden Temple and Khalistan and Indira Gandhi and all everything and Kargil War, somehow they get in Sushmita Sen like winning Miss Universe, and I'm like, this is a big moment. Okay, I guess like you want to put that and acknowledge that in your movie, sure. But the moment they sort of like push into the 2000s, I feel like they don't really have, either they don't know what historical moments to pick up on, or maybe they don't really have anything left. Like it's such a recent history that it doesn't feel iconic yet, maybe.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I feel that jab tak Congress hai, they're happy to. I mean, like I said, he's a Sardarji for a reason, right? So they can lean into that side of history very comfortably. Like they can do the Golden Temple.
Yeah, the only
stuff.
side they do from the other side is like that Yatra, right? Laal, whatever, Advani, and they just make the only joke they make about it is that the name is Laal,
which is.
And I'm like, what is this, a Martha moment from like Batman vs Superman? Yeah. That's the only jab you have to make about the Yatra being a Muslim man? Like, come on.
So that stuff happens, like, so we see the Yatra, and then I think someone off screen talks about the Babri Masjid stuff, right? Like, or the aftermath
and
of it.
It's turned into a joke, right? Because his mother, every time it happens, like Sabadi always happen, his mother calls him and he's like, Beta, malaria fell, right? He locks himself and he doesn't like go running. In his track meet. And again the Bombay riots, and then again her mother calls it like Marila ho raha hai. So it just passed off as that. It's never like there's nothing else happening around it. It just becomes like a sidey like jokey callback moment.
So it's their way of kind of touching on it and also not like engaging with it. It's very like we have to, but we can't really do much beyond this, which I didn't have.
The only moment they engage with is the stuff that the Jogi stuff, right, which we talked about a few weeks. Like that's the only moment they really engage with
without repercussion. You can comfortably.
Yeah, so that's the only moment they delve into. Like they make like a big deal out of it. Otherwise, everything else, I thought that even the Golden Temple stuff, I thought was done nicely in how they didn't focus on just like recreating the moment, but they showed us like the reactions on the faces of these people, right? I thought that was like a well done moment, and like the way it was navigated. But everything else, like the Sushmita Sen stuff, like, I mean, I don't even care, but like fine, it's happened on TV. Kargil War was probably the only other thing they do like properly because the character is directly involved in it. But it's not like from the point of view of the war or whatever, right? It's from his point of view, which I guess makes sense.
That's the point of the movie, right? Everything we are watching via him.
It is, it's his journey. Like, it's his comedic thing of like, oh, he's running everywhere and rescuing people, which I guess was in a way similar. Like, I don't think Forrest Gump really navigated the Vietnam War or whatever. It just like was through this guy who can't understand much, but like he is going to war.
Yeah. And how a person like that will kind of navigate an inherently like violent system, right? Like, how do you like do that? And his reaction to it is kind of not bravery, I would say, because bravery kind of implies being aware of the bravery, and I don't think he's aware that he's brave. Exactly. He's just doing it because he thinks it's the right thing to do, right? Which is the
because like in the war moments, the constant joke is that they keep calling him genius and like what a amazing thing you're doing, and he's just like, "Aapne bola isliye maine kar diya." That's it. It's as simple as that, right? Like it's even through the beginning when the first time he starts running, it's like, oh, Rupa's saying it, so I'm just like running, like, which is why he doesn't even stop running. Like that's the joke. Like he just does things that people close to him tell him. Otherwise, he has no knowledge of like what things are supposed to be done. Like he doesn't even realize that, okay, now that the war is over, they're giving me like free retirement, I should take the retirement. He's like, I just keep doing this army stuff because someone told me to do this army stuff. It's only when the mom like visits him after his V chakra and he's like, oh bro, maybe you should retire. And like, haha, okay, I guess I can do that now. I didn't think of it.
But that's his character, right? Which they kind of contrast with the Rupa character, right? Because Rupa is actively doing things for herself to make her life a certain way, right? And for her it backfires miserably, whereas he is just going with the flow literally, and he has everything that Rupa desired, right? But neither one is happy because they don't have each other, or until they have each other.
One of them, like, I think he wants obviously her more than she wants him, at least for a long while.
Time,
So like Rupa was like, I think you said it right. Like he has everything she wants, and in a way she has things like. I mean, I guess she doesn't really have anything which he wants. I guess
she doesn't have anything, right? She realized at the end of her life, basically, that it was a waste.
She spent chasing things which she could have just gotten with love.
Which is the point the movie is trying to make also. Like, for different people, I guess happiness comes from different things, and like which all of it is like there, right? So you can't like actively, I can't like hate on this movie. I'm like, okay, your heart is in the right place. What am I supposed to do now? What do you think of Mr. Aamir Khan? Because that has been a little bit of contentious.
That is the big holy part. I think I was always happy when he was not like exaggerating his like or his eyes, how bulging they would appear and stuff like that. I almost felt like they were doing VFX on his eyes.
So they did de-age
that's how
him,
roundy they became
a lot.
In some places.
There's a lot of de-aging happening, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. But I'm saying with his eyes also, after a point, it was like, it doesn't feel like he's opening them anymore 100%. It feels like they have applied VFX to make them, like it's almost like a Pixar movie, like bada kar diya hai.
He's almost like a Pixar guy. That's a good call, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, except like he's like lifelike, so it becomes like this uncanny valley nonsense, right? Which is like, what are you doing, bro? You're not acting like, I understand you're on the spectrum, but like you don't have to behave in such an exaggerated fashion, right?
I was thinking about this, and initially it is a little bit of, it takes a while to get used to the tone of his performance, because it's not in sync with the tone of the film, right? And I was wondering if it was one of those situations where the director kind of didn't say anything or couldn't say anything, like Aamir sir has come up with this version.
It's just like, it's probably a mix of both, right? Like I feel like the Khans at this point are basically ghost directing their movies, right?
Which he has a history of doing, by the way.
Yeah.
Aamir though, he does it often.
Yep. He's been doing it like since I think Tare Zameen Par or something, or before that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing, right? Because I don't think it's a bad performance. I'm just not sure if it's the correct performance for this film. Like, because what he's doing well. And you can sense like minor adjustments that he's making, so he's not consistently exaggerated. There are scenes like in the middle of here and there, like especially the scenes in which he's interacting with Rupa when they're not with anybody else, just the two of them. He changes, right? He becomes more muted person, right? Because in a way he's sensing like abhi repercussions. Like normally he wouldn't think of any of those things. Like he just does things. But when he's talking to Rupa and when he asks her to marry him, he knows that she might say no. So there is something that might disappoint him. So all of that is happening in those scenes. And it's like, obviously in the end, it's like completely different, right? The performance actually works quite well at the end when they get married and when she dies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those are actually the best parts of the movie, I felt. Like after everything happens and they settle down. Because suddenly, I mean, I don't know why it worked. Maybe it's just an amalgamation of the journey, but I felt like both of them were really good in it. And then obviously the whole tragic aspect of the story also comes full circle, right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is, by the time it's like the movie like is very good at like, I think, pulling tears from you as well. Like it's done so much, like as you spoke about, it's such an epic in scale at least. And gone through so much with this character that even if you like didn't relate to like some of the journey when this, you know, when the kid stuff happens, and when then you learn about like her tragedy and everything and her involvement in the crimes, and then she's like, now she's like sick as well, like that stuff eventually, and even the mother stuff happens like 10 minutes before that, right? The mother passes away, like those moments then do get to you.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I was involved, like I wasn't fully emotionally involved. It's more of it's one of those like refined, it's like surprisingly refined for like a Hindi film, right? Like of this scale. It's almost like a Marvel movie in that way, right? Because the storytelling is so scientific almost. And obviously technically those films are above reproach mostly. So you're like, हाँ ठीक, I admire what you're doing, but I don't know if I'm fully engaged or invested.
Yeah.
Although I would say that the character kind of grows on you as the film goes on.
And then they're smart enough to like do like surround him with like characters who are admirable as well, right? Like once like Rupa like sort of leaves the film around the 50-minute mark, so then they have to like, you know, when they start pushing him into the army, where Bala comes into play for a long while, and then when Bala sort of leaves the picture, they really try to like put Muhammad Paji into the story, right? Which is probably the biggest sort of invention for the movie. Like there's no like equivalent of that in Forrest Gump, right? Because here they actually have some, because we share a border, they can play on the Indian-Pakistan thing, right? Which like America can't do with like what you do. Like can't show a Vietnamese guy or a Russian guy like next door living. Which is actually possible. So that's probably their biggest update, I would say.
And possibly the biggest like bhaichara ka message that the movie also has, which is kind of bonkers, like if you think about it, but it plays it so straight and so earnestly, like even the edginess of the mere idea of like a terrorist being rehabilitated and becoming BFFs with our protagonist, you're like, oh, obviously, like in this movie, that's exactly what would happen.
Exactly, like with Laal Singh, like that's like with Laal, that's what you expect. Like he, like that is his basically magnanimous power, or whatever, right? Like he can change even anyone's heart. Like this is that kind of movie.
The guy's performance is all like it's written in the character also. Like even he's in disbelief. He's like, I was a terrorist until yesterday. I wanted to kill you. What is happening? I can't believe. Like he is in disbelief that he's turning into a good person, right?
Yeah.
Which is the
he's like, मुझे यहाँ भेजा गया था by telling me that everyone here was kafir, and then I met you. Like what just happened?
So everyone that he runs into is basically a nice person, right? Like he doesn't run into like
even Laal basically like whitewashes like capitalism as well, right? At one point, like with the whole like Rupa like corporation thing.
That I didn't see coming, by the way, and I kind of enjoyed it.
Which I don't know if it's like a very expert product placement or just like a joke that Rupa Corporation went along with it. But like what they do there is basically like like I mean nobody really cares about who the actual founder of Rupa Corporation are. But now they basically don't matter after this movie. Like now they feel like saints, and now especially with like Laal like donating like half the yearly profits, is probably like the biggest charitable act that anyone has done ever in their lives. You know, just like all the annual profits ka half will just go to like the dead founder or the dead not even founder of the company, the guy who inspired the company's like foundation.
But I actually think that was I actually liked it. I thought it was quite kind of smart because it's so like. It doesn't come out of nowhere, right? Because it's so baked into the whole story.
Yeah, from the film like minute 5, there's a character called Rupa, so you can't say it's like a hijack moment.
And minute 20, like Bala is like, "Mujhe banyan ka business shuru karna hai." Then he actually does it, and you're like, you realize it. I think 5 seconds before he says it, and that is the magic of the moment, right? Because I'm guessing that's what they intended, like for you to kind of be hit by that realization before, so that now you can't like fault the movie, right? Because you thought of it too.
Which is like in a way ingenious as well, because like I don't remember like Forrest Gump doing anything like that. Like he had some fishing business his Vietnam friend wanted to do, but they don't really delve into it that deeply as deeply this like Laal Singh Chaddha went with it.
Yeah. Also, then you realize that of all the brands, like this is kind of recognizable, right? Across the nation, like people will recognize it. Like, acha, kahin na kahin to sunna hai, kahin na kahin to dekha hai, right? So it's a nice kind of nod to this 90s culture also. Speaking of which, Shah Rukh cameo happens, no? Shah Rukh cameo happens.
Was that like is that a 90s cameo or an 80s cameo? When are they there? He's there before the Indira Gandhi thing.
Before the Indira Gandhi thing?
That's what he goes with, right? He's talking about like, the first time I went to my aunt's in Delhi.
Yeah, it happens, I think, around the same time.
The same time, yeah. So basically, before the riot, yeah. So it's probably an 80s cameo, I guess. So yeah, which makes sense because like Shah Rukh Khan hasn't become Shah Rukh Khan yet, right?
Yeah, he's still chilling in Delhi, yeah.
Yeah, he's still chilling in Delhi. Like, it doesn't, I'm sure he didn't look like that, but that's just, that's the limitations of like what de-aging you can do with like, how old is he now? 55 plus?
Must be, they're all the same age, I believe. They're all
around, yeah, roughly.
2-ish or something, yeah.
But like,
so,
I mean, I thought it was like I admire like the meta-ness of it. Like it's very like, it's a brave thing to do, especially when like you're going like almost like acknowledging the outer world almost, right? It's all like you're acknowledging that this, our movies is set in is about Bollywood in a way. It's a Bollywood production as well, but there's also like about India. And yeah, I mean, I think I enjoyed it basically. I mean, I think it would have been like a little annoying if like he had like a role to play as well in the movie or somewhere, like if he was a producer as well. But the fact that he's not involved in the movie in any way, and they have had the heart and humor to involve him, then it's fine, right? It doesn't feel like producer ko involve kar diya moment, which has happened in some other movies you talked about.
No, here it feels like if you want, like, so in Forrest Gump you had Elvis, right? And the reason why they had Elvis was because Elvis, like the goddamn movie told us, he represents the evolution of America also.
Yeah.
And I guess if you want like an equivalent of that in India, like who else would you kind of go to?
Yeah, especially with that, like, if you're going through like 80s to early 2000s, I can't think of another person who sort of crosses lines as broadly as SRK does.
Or is as recognizable globally also, right? Because I'm sure that has to play into it also.
Yeah.
Like when you have a cameo, like it will make no sense to people abroad, like ye kaun hai? Why is he important? But then people have kind of I'm guessing more people have heard of Shah Rukh Khan than any other.
I mean, if Miss Marvel is making those jokes, then obviously Laal Singh Chaddha can.
I enjoyed those things. I thought they were nicely done. What else is there? What did I hate about this movie? I don't know what I hated. What did I dislike about it? I guess the only thing I disliked about it is like the blatant Swachh Bharat stuff and the...
Oh my god, yeah. The when the camera lingered on that like railway platform ad, I think I had it. I was like, this is just too much now. Like,
because it's not even important, right? It's not even important. And like
you have left the character. Your character has run out of the scene and the camera has like, we must stop here. And it almost felt like Swachh Bharat like paid the money to be like, please stop here for 3 seconds, the camera. I think the camera stops longer on Swachh Bharat than it stops on the Modi ka poster. Or whatever, mural.
Whatever, yeah. And mind you, this is an important moment. This is when he exits the train and he's supposed to meet.
Yeah, it's like he's arriving in Chandigarh, he's running to his like beloved. He's just announced with literally like golgappas in a box, which like seemed very weird in the beginning, but then you understand why it happens later. And you're like, no, right now we must. This is the only organic moment we could have come up to like put Swachh Bharat here. I'm just like, are you crazy? Like, cut this. Where is the editor? And he or she have no power. They're like, nope, sorry bro. Call above producers, above everyone, call aaya. Editor, you cannot touch that scene.
You cannot touch it. You have to, in fact,
any editor. I'm not an editor. I would be like, that's too long. Let's cut it.
I guess, yeah, those are the, like, I guess, the annoying things about this movie. Beyond, of course, that it doesn't really push the envelope.
Yeah, it's
at
not
all.
Like,
especially
like 30 saal ho gaye hain Forrest Gump ko, but we're just gonna make as if we're still making a movie in like 30 years ago in terms of tone and style and all.
But that does kind of bring us to a important, like, do you remember any other like itne level ka Hollywood remake? Because
like
they keep
on
stealing,
like enlisting one of the top 3 actors, or at least from when they were top 3
like
10
they keep
years ago.
Stealing stuff regularly, and they keep remaking like minor stuff like Korean film bana di phir se and all that, but I don't know if like itna well recognized film if I can remember being remade.
Yeah, I'm
like,
sure
not
like
talking
Godfather
about,
has been made like 50 times in India.
but
no
not
one's
like,
announced कि we're remaking the Godfather
हाँ.
with Paramount Pictures involved.
Yeah. And for Paramount to be like, okay, remake Forrest Gump. I don't even know if that's a wise decision because
of how much money they would have to pay, I guess, to Paramount.
It must have been astronomical.
Although maybe, I don't know, maybe the fee is lower because like Viacom is involved, which is like partly owned by Paramount. I don't know how it works, honestly, these things. It's funny though that Viacom, like, you know, in Hollywood, this movie was released like as a production. I mean, it is a Paramount production, right? If the logo shows up, I guess. So then this kind of movie would be reserved because it has like one of the top stars. They would not let it go to any streaming service because that's the norm these days, right? Like you reserve your top movies, like the Batman goes to HBO Max, the Thor Love and Thunder goes to Disney Plus. But in India, like streamers are so hungry for money and they can't really care about such stuff, about growth or whatever, right? Like having the bigger stuff, that Viacom is just essentially selling its product to like Netflix. They're like, "Hum tu le jao because you'll give us money," not thinking that we should keep such stuff for like a boot or something which we own. That like consideration doesn't play here. Like it's completely like polar opposite of how the American approach is.
Yeah, like everything else, it's short term, right? In India,
yeah, it's all short term. Yeah, it's just thinking ki abhi ke liye. And it's sold to Netflix worldwide. So even in the US, where like Paramount Pictures is a producer, it's not on Paramount Plus, I'm guessing there. It's like Laal Singh Chaddha is on Netflix there. Just like it's so backwards.
Yeah. It's like हमारा quarter निकल जाए, फिर उसके बाद सोचेंगे कि क्या करने. But I'm guessing it's not permanently going to be on Netflix. Like whatever 5-6 months.
Year one license will be here, year two will be whatever that nonsense, that business decisions. But year one is what mostly like works for you, right? Like that's when we get the big money and the big viewing.
And especially in a movie like this where people didn't go to the theater, so they were like, we'll just watch it when it comes on streaming.
Yeah, that's just a bigger. That like I feel like that's like what's happening. What already happened with Hollywood like 10-15 years ago is now slowly happening here. That you pull in people through like, you know, event filmmaking. You're like, we have huge explosions and huge like whatever things, and then people come to you. Otherwise, it clearly feels like a trend of audiences just avoiding anything that's like mid-budget or whatever, or
or at least something that isn't directed at teenagers. You know, like I don't think this is not a teenager movie.
Those years pandemic ke people have been like trained clearly to watch stuff at home, and now it's gonna take something insane to get them out of their couches into the theater seats.
As epic as this is a large-scale movie, right? But it's not something that kids would watch. Like it's something that like older people probably
especially when you make a movie about like the 80s to 2000s, you've basically made a movie for the Gen X and millennial sort of people, right?
And but it is, in a way, it is a movie about also growing old, right? And living with regret. So it's like something an older person would enjoy probably more. And I guess,
And Gen Z today is like, you have to make a movie about like 2000 or 2010. Like that's how recent it has to be now. Like those people are adults. Someone born in 2000 is 22 now. So like, if a teenager basically means he's born in like 2007. That's insane.
That is insane.
So if that's how you have to go for, like, this is not the movie you have to make. This movie ends in 2007 for all I know. Or actually doesn't end there because they show Modi, so fine, it ends in 2018. But that's not the point. The point is, it's most of the movie is set in the past.
I guess, I don't have anything else to contribute.
I guess time to wrap it up then.
Yeah.
That's all with this episode of The Long Take. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram at thelongtakepod. You can write to us at thelongtakepod@gmail.com. Please leave us a rating and a review. Where to see the episode, and we will see you next week.